Here's the pattern everyone misses. The Navy has been lying about Flight 19 since day one, and I can prove it. Let me show you how. December 5th, 1945. World War II ended 3 months ago. The Navy is still at wartime readiness, training constantly. Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station runs dozens of training flights every week. The pattern is simple. Planes take off, follow a predetermined route, complete training objectives, return to base. The pattern holds. Every day, every flight, hundreds of times, no incidents, until Flight 19. But here's what they don't tell you. Flight 19 wasn't supposed to happen that day. The original flight leader called in sick that morning. Lieutenant Charles Taylor took his place as a substitute. Taylor didn't know the route, didn't have time to study the flight plan. But he was experienced, over 2,500 flight hours. Veteran of the Pacific Theater. The Navy said it was fine. He'd figure it out. That decision killed 14 men. At 2:10 p.m., all 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers took off. These aren't small planes. Big aircraft, substantial. 3-man crews, pilot, turret gunner, radio man, 14 men total across 5 planes. The flight plan was simple, straightforward. They'd done it dozens of times before. It was called Navigation Problem Number 1. Fly east for 56 miles over the Atlantic. Practice bombing runs on a target called Hen and Chicken Shoals, shallow reefs. Good for practice. Then turn north for 73 miles, parallel to the Florida coast. Then turn southwest and head back to base. Total distance, 120 miles. Flight time, about 2 hours. Maximum. It should have been easy. The weather was perfect, and I mean perfect. Clear skies, calm seas, unlimited visibility. The kind of day pilots love. The kind of day where you can see forever. Where navigation should be effortless. Nothing should have gone wrong. Everything about this flight was routine, standard, safe. At 2:10 p.m., they took off. Normal takeoff, normal radio communications. They flew east, over the Atlantic, everything proceeding according to plan. The tower tracked them on radar, monitored their radio transmissions. Everything normal. At 3:40 p.m., they reached the bombing target, Hen and Chicken's Shoals. Completed their practice runs, dropped their dummy bombs. All good. Perfect execution. Now they just needed to turn north, fly up the coast, then turn southwest back to Fort Lauderdale. Simple navigation, basic flying. This is stuff student pilots can do. And these weren't students. These were trained military aviators, some with combat experience, some with hundreds of hours in these exact aircraft. This should have been the easiest part of the mission. But at 3:45 p.m., everything changed, and nobody can explain why. The tower at Fort Lauderdale received a transmission, not from Taylor, from Captain Edward Powers, one of the other pilots in the formation. His voice was uncertain, confused, not panicked yet, just confused. My compasses are out. I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale. I'm over land, but I don't know where. The tower operator froze. Over land? They should be over water, heading north along the coast. Why would he be over land, and what does he mean his compasses are out? Compasses don't just stop working. What is your position? The tower asked. Standard question, basic protocol. Give us your position so we can help you navigate. Powers didn't answer directly. Another voice came through. Taylor, the flight leader. Both my compasses are out. I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down. The Keys, the Florida Keys, a chain of islands south of Florida. But that made no sense, absolutely no sense. They were supposed to be flying north. away from the Keys. How could they be in the Keys? They'd have to have flown completely off course in the opposite direction for an hour without noticing. The tower tried to guide them. Stay calm, be helpful, get them home. Fly north, you'll hit the mainland. You can't miss Florida. It's a huge peninsula. Just fly north. And then Taylor said something that still haunts me, something that appears in the official transcripts, something the Navy has never adequately explained. We can't be sure which way is north. Everything looks strange. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should. Stop right there. Stop everything. Think about what he just said. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should. What does that mean? How does an ocean look wrong? Water is water. Blue is blue. Waves are waves. The Atlantic Ocean looks like the Atlantic Ocean. It doesn't change. It doesn't transform. It doesn't look different unless you're seeing a different ocean, unless you're somewhere else, somewhere that looks like the Atlantic, but isn't. The Navy never explained that line, never addressed it in their official reports. They buried it in the transcripts, mentioned it briefly, then moved on, hoping nobody would notice, hoping nobody would ask the obvious question. What did he mean? What was he seeing? But I noticed, and once you hear it, once you really think about it, you can't unhear it. Something was wrong with what they were seeing. Not just their instruments, not just their compasses, their actual perception of reality, what they were looking at with their own eyes. The tower was baffled, completely confused. These were experienced pilots, military aviators, with backup navigation systems, with training, with hundreds of hours of flight time, and they couldn't tell which way was north. The sun was still up. It was only 3:45 p.m. The sun sets in the west. That's basic navigation. If you can see the sun, you can figure out which way is north. But somehow, they couldn't. For the next hour, transmissions came sporadically. The signal was weak, breaking up. But they could hear Taylor's voice, increasingly confused, increasingly frustrated. He sounded like a man trying to solve an impossible puzzle. At one point he said, "We might be over the Gulf of Mexico." The Gulf of Mexico. Think about that. The Gulf of Mexico is west of Florida. On the other side of the state, they'd have to fly completely across Florida, over land, over cities and towns and roads, for over an hour to get to the Gulf. And they hadn't. They'd been over water the whole time. How could he think they were over the Gulf? At 4:45 p.m., another pilot in the formation broke in, Marine Captain George Stivers. His voice was sharp, frustrated, angry even. "If we just fly west, we'll hit land." We have to fly west. He was right, absolutely right. Basic logic, basic geography. Fly west from anywhere in that region. You hit Florida, it's massive. Hundreds of miles of coastline, you can't miss it. But Taylor didn't follow that advice. He was convinced they were in the Gulf of Mexico. If they were in the Gulf, flying west would take them to Mexico, away from base, away from safety, deeper into trouble. So he made a decision, a command decision. As flight leader, it was his call. He ordered them to fly east. Toward what he thought was Florida, he was wrong, dead wrong. And here's where the pattern breaks down completely, where this stops being a simple navigation error and becomes something else. Other pilots in the formation started questioning him, arguing with him. You can hear it in the transcripts, read it in the official records. Damn it, if we could just fly west, we could get home. But Taylor was in command. Military hierarchy is absolute. The flight leader makes the call. Everyone else follows. even if the call is wrong, even if other pilots know it's wrong. That's the structure. That's the system. So they followed him. They flew east, away from Florida, deeper into the Atlantic. And at 5:15 p.m., the tower picked up more transmissions. The pilots were arguing with each other, debating, trying to figure out where they were, and here's the detail that nobody can explain. The detail that breaks every natural explanation. Compasses on all 5 planes were malfunctioning, all 5, simultaneously, spinning, giving false readings, pointing in wrong directions. Pause for a second. If you were on one of those planes, compasses failing, your flight leader confused, and you just heard someone say, "The ocean doesn't look as it should," what would you be thinking? Hit that like button if your first thought would be, something is very, very wrong here. Now let me tell you why that's impossible. TBM Avengers had redundant navigation systems. They weren't simple planes. These were military aircraft, designed for reliability, for survival. Each plane had a magnetic compass, a gyro compass, backup instruments, multiple systems to ensure you could always navigate. For all of them to fail on all 5 planes at the exact same time. The Navy's own engineers later said it was statistically impossible, not unlikely, impossible, unless something external was interfering, something affecting all the planes simultaneously, something powerful enough to scramble every navigation instrument on 5 separate aircraft. What could do that? What kind of force? What kind of phenomenon? The Navy never answered that question. They couldn't, because they didn't have an answer, or they did have an answer and didn't want to share it. By 6 p.m., the situation was critical, desperate. The planes were running low on fuel. They'd been airborne for almost 4 hours. TBM Avengers carried enough fuel for about 5 hours maximum under normal conditions. But they'd been flying erratically, changing course, burning fuel faster. They probably had an hour left, maybe less. The transmissions were getting harder to hear. The signal was weak, fading in and out, like they were moving farther away. But farther away from what? From Florida, from the tower, from reality itself. The tower kept calling, kept trying to guide them, offering solutions, suggestions, anything to help. Turn on your IFF, identification friend or foe, a transponder system that would let them triangulate the plane's position, get a fix on where they were. Taylor refused. He was afraid if he switched frequencies, if he changed settings, they'd lose contact completely. And then they'd be truly lost. At 6:20 p.m., Taylor's voice came through again. Different now, calmer, resigned, like he'd accepted something. We'll have to ditch. As soon as one plane gets down to 10 gallons, we all go down together. Ditch. That's military terminology for an emergency water landing. He wanted them to stay together, all 5 planes. If they had to crash into the ocean, at least they'd be near each other, close enough for rescue teams to find them all at once. Easier to spot, better chance of survival. But here's what bothers me about that transmission. The tone, the acceptance in his voice. He said, "We all go down together," like he'd accepted they weren't getting home, like he knew something that Tower didn't, like he'd seen something or realized something that made him understand their fate was sealed. At 7:04 p.m., the final transmission from Flight 19. Broken, garbled, parts of it barely audible through the static. All planes close up tight. We'll have to ditch unless landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together. And then nothing. The tower called repeatedly, over and over. Flight 19, This is Fort Lauderdale. Do you read? Silence. Dead air. Flight 19, please respond. We need your position. Nothing. Complete silence. They were gone. Just like that. 5 planes, 14 men, vanished. But the Navy wasn't done losing planes that night, because what happened next is even stranger, even more impossible to explain. And this is the part they really don't want to talk about. At 7:27 p.m., a PBM Mariner flying boat took off from Banana River Naval Air Station. Different base, different aircraft. Mission: search for Flight 19, find survivors, locate the planes, rescue anyone who'd survived a water landing. The Mariner was a large aircraft, much bigger than the Avengers. 13 crew members, experienced search and rescue team. These weren't trainee pilots. These were professionals, experts in finding downed aircraft, finding survivors at sea. They knew what they were doing. At 7:50 p.m., 23 minutes after takeoff, the Mariner sent a routine position report. Standard protocol, everything normal, weather clear, heading to search area, no problems. That was the last anyone heard from it, ever. 23 minutes after takeoff, the Mariner vanished. No distress call, no mayday, no emergency transmission, just gone. Disappeared as completely as Flight 19. By midnight, the Navy had lost 6 aircraft and 27 men, all in one evening, in the same general area, under perfect weather conditions. Let that sink in. 6 planes, 27 experienced military personnel, gone, without a trace. This wasn't war. This wasn't combat. This was peacetime. Training exercises and rescue operations, and the Navy lost everyone. At dawn, December 6th, they launched the largest air-sea search operation in naval history up to that point. It was massive, unprecedented. Hundreds of aircraft, dozens of ships, Coast Guard vessels, Navy destroyers, submarines, aircraft carriers, search planes, everything they had. They searched 380,000 square miles of ocean, an area roughly the size of Texas. They looked everywhere: the Atlantic coast, the Gulf of Mexico, the Bahamas, the Caribbean, everywhere Flight 19 could possibly have gone. For 5 days, they combed the ocean. Systematic, thorough, professional. And they found nothing. Absolutely nothing. No wreckage, no oil slicks, no life rafts, no bodies, no debris, not a single piece of any of those 6 aircraft. Not a personal item, not a seat cushion, not a piece of wing, nothing. It was as if 6 planes had simply ceased to exist, erased from reality. The Navy convened a board of inquiry, formal investigation, mandatory for incidents like this. They interviewed everyone involved, the tower operators, the other pilots who'd been flying that day, ground crew, weather officers, maintenance personnel, everyone. They reconstructed the flight, analyzed every transmission, every radio call, every piece of data, studied weather reports, ocean currents, wind patterns, everything. And their official conclusion? Cause of loss, unknown. That's it, unknown. 2 words after weeks of investigation, after interviewing dozens of witnesses, after analyzing all the data. Unknown. They gave up. They couldn't explain it, couldn't make it fit into any logical framework. But here's what they didn't tell the public. Here's what they buried in classified files for decades. The compasses. All 5 planes reported simultaneous compass failure, not mechanical failure, not gradual degradation, sudden, complete, simultaneous failure. The compasses were spinning, giving wildly incorrect readings, pointing in directions that made no sense. The Navy's engineers studied this. They couldn't explain it. Compasses are simple instruments, magnets. They point to magnetic north, always. They don't fail unless something powerful interferes with the magnetic field. But what? What could affect 5 separate aircraft at once? From a distance? With enough power to completely scramble their navigation instruments? Solar flare? No solar activity recorded that day. Magnetic anomaly? No such anomalies in that region. Electronic interference? From what? There were no electronic warfare tests that day. No military exercises involving electronic countermeasures. Nothing that could explain it. And then there's the Mariner, the rescue plane. The official Navy explanation is that it exploded. Mariners had a reputation. They leaked fuel fumes, volatile, dangerous. Pilots called them flying gas tanks. One spark and boom, catastrophic explosion. So the official story is that the Mariner exploded shortly after takeoff. Catastrophic mechanical failure, accidental explosion, case closed. But here's the problem with that explanation. The massive problem nobody wants to address. There were ships in the area that night, Coast Guard vessels, commercial ships, merchant marine, multiple vessels with crews on deck, watching, looking. If a plane exploded in the sky, they would have seen it. A fireball lighting up the night sky, debris raining down, a massive explosion visible for miles. But no one reported seeing anything. No one saw an explosion. No one heard anything. No one reported a flash or a fireball or anything unusual. And if it exploded, where's the debris? Where's the oil slick? Where's the wreckage? Planes don't vaporize when they explode. There's always debris, always wreckage, always something. Oil, fuel, parts, bodies, something. They found nothing. Not a single piece of the Mariner, not a life vest, not a seat cushion, not a drop of oil, nothing. So either it exploded so completely that it vaporized, which isn't how explosions work, which violates physics, or something else happened. And I think I know what. I think the Mariner encountered the same thing Flight 19 encountered. Whatever phenomenon, whatever force, whatever impossibility took 5 planes and 14 men. It took the Mariner too. It took another 13 men, and the Navy has been covering it up for 80 years. Here's where you need to make a choice. Hit subscribe right now because this is day 2 of 7 impossible disappearances, and tomorrow I'm covering the Mary Celeste, a ship found in perfect condition with food still warm but the entire crew gone. Another case where everyone gives you a safe, boring explanation that doesn't actually explain anything. But before that, I need you to pick a side on Flight 19. Are you team natural explanation or team something else? Because there is no middle ground here. Let me tell you what I really think happened that day. And the Navy is going to hate me for saying this. The military is going to hate me. Skeptics are going to hate me. But I don't care because I've studied this case for years and there's only one explanation that covers all the evidence. I don't think Flight 19 crashed. I think they flew into something, a phenomenon, an anomaly, something in the Bermuda Triangle that we don't understand and can't explain, something that affects instruments, that scrambles navigation, that distorts perception, that makes experienced pilots perceive reality differently. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should. That's not pilot error. That's not instrument failure. That's someone experiencing a fundamental shift in reality, a change in what's real. And I think Flight 19 either flew into another dimension, or they flew forward or backward in time, or they encountered something so far outside our understanding of physics that we don't even have words for it yet. And the Mariner flew into the same thing 23 minutes later. Now, Let me show you why the official explanations are garbage. Let me dismantle them one by one so you can see how weak they are. Explanation 1 from the official naval report: pilot error. Taylor got disoriented, made bad decisions, led the flight in circles until they ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. Simple accident, human error. But this explanation ignores key facts. Other pilots were trying to correct him. Captain Stivers was literally telling him, "Fly west." Other pilots in the formation knew something was wrong. They were questioning his decisions. So it wasn't just one pilot being confused, it was all of them being unable to navigate. And how does pilot error cause compasses to fail on 5 separate aircraft? How does pilot error make the ocean look wrong? It doesn't. This explanation explains nothing. Explanation 2. The compasses failed due to mechanical issues. 5 separate mechanical failures. At the same time, on 5 different planes, on multiple backup systems per plane. Do you understand how unlikely that is? It's like flipping a coin and getting heads 1,000 times in a row. Mathematically possible? Sure. Technically realistic? Absolutely not. And what caused the failures? The Navy never says. They just assert it happened. Multiple simultaneous mechanical failures. No explanation for the cause, no mechanism, no reason, just bad luck. All at once. Impossible bad luck. Explanation 3. They flew into bad weather. A storm developed. They got disoriented in clouds and rain and crashed. Weather-related accident, but the weather reports from that day show clear skies. Unlimited visibility. Calm seas, no storms anywhere near their flight path, no clouds, no rain, no fog. Ships in the area reported perfect conditions. Beautiful evening. So where's the storm? Where's the bad weather? It doesn't exist. This explanation requires you to ignore documented weather data. Explanation 4. Methane eruption. This one's popular with people who want a scientific-sounding explanation. Pockets of methane gas trapped under the ocean floor. Sometimes they burst to the surface, create huge bubbles. If a plane flies through a methane cloud, the engines lose power because the air-fuel mixture gets disrupted. The plane drops, crashes into the ocean, and methane bubbles can sink ships too because they reduce water density. The ship loses buoyancy, sinks. Sounds plausible, right? Sounds scientific. But it doesn't explain Flight 19, not even close. First, methane eruptions are localized, small area. One plane might fly through it, maybe, but all 5 planes at once, spread out across miles, all at the same time? Second, methane eruptions don't affect compasses. They don't scramble instruments. They don't make navigation equipment malfunction. Third, methane doesn't make oceans look different. It doesn't change what you see. It doesn't distort perception. And fourth, there's no evidence of methane eruption in that area on that day. None. So this explanation requires multiple simultaneous methane eruptions, all affecting different planes, while also somehow affecting their instruments, which methane doesn't do, and leaving no trace. It's nonsense. Explanation 5, magnetic anomaly. The Bermuda Triangle is known for unusual magnetic readings, compasses spinning, navigation equipment failing. Maybe Flight 19 flew into an area of intense magnetic disturbance. Their compasses went haywire. They couldn't navigate. They got lost and ran out of fuel. This explanation has some support. The Bermuda Triangle does have documented magnetic anomalies, areas where compasses behave strangely, where magnetic north shifts, where readings are unreliable. This happens. It's real. But is it enough to affect 5 planes simultaneously? To completely disable all their navigation equipment? To make experienced pilots unable to figure out basic direction using the sun? And what about the ocean doesn't look as it should? Magnetic fields don't change what you see. They don't alter visual perception. They affect instruments, not eyeballs. So this explanation is closer. It accounts for some of the evidence, but not all of it. Not the visual distortions, not the complete disorientation, not the impossible confusion. Explanation 6, the one nobody wants to say out loud, the one that sounds crazy. Alien abduction, UFOS extraterrestrial intervention. Flight 19 was taken, abducted by non-human intelligence, along with the rescue plane, removed from our reality, taken somewhere else, for study, for experimentation, for unknown purposes. There's no evidence for this, but when everything else fails, when every natural explanation falls apart, people turn to the extreme. And honestly, I can't completely dismiss it, because something impossible happened, something that breaks our understanding of reality. And if it's not natural, if it's not explicable through physics and weather and human error, then maybe it is something else, something beyond our current understanding. I'm not saying it's aliens. I'm saying I don't know, and neither does anyone else. Explanation 7. And this is the one I actually believe. Dimensional shift, thin places, overlapping realities. I think Flight 19 slipped through into another dimension, a parallel reality, where the ocean looked different because it was different, where navigation didn't work because the magnetic fields were different, where the rules of our reality didn't apply. And I think they either flew through completely, ended up somewhere else, still flying, still lost, still trying to get home in a world that's not ours, or they got caught between, trapped in a space that's neither here nor there, frozen in a moment that never ends. This theory sounds insane. I know that. I know how it sounds. But it's the only one that explains Taylor's statement. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should. That's not a man confused about navigation. That's a man describing something impossible, something that shouldn't exist, a literal different ocean, a different reality. Let me tell you about the Bermuda Triangle, because Flight 19 is just one case, one disappearance in a long pattern. The Bermuda Triangle is an area of the Atlantic Ocean roughly bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, about 500,000 square miles. And for as long as people have been sailing through it, ships have vanished. Planes have disappeared. People have gone missing. The USS Cyclops, 1918, a massive Navy cargo ship, 542 feet long, 306 men aboard, disappeared without a trace. No distress call, no SOS, no wreckage ever found. Gone. The Star Tiger and Star Ariel, 2 British passenger planes, 1948 and 1949. Both vanished while flying through the triangle. Both sent normal routine transmissions. Then silence. No mayday calls, no emergency signals, no debris, nothing. The Marine Sulphur Queen, 1963. A tanker ship with 39 crew, last seen near the Florida Keys. Disappeared. No wreckage, no survivors, no explanation. The list goes on and on. Over the past century, dozens of ships have vanished in the triangle. Dozens of planes, hundreds of people. Some people say it's coincidence. The triangle is heavily traveled. More traffic means more accidents. Statistically normal. Nothing mysterious about it. But others say there's something else. Something about that area, something that causes instruments to fail. That disorients pilots and captains. That makes things disappear. And I'm in the second camp, because the coincidences pile up. The similarities stack. The pattern repeats. compass failures, disorientation, perception distortions, impossible disappearances with no wreckage, over and over, same area, same symptoms, same results. That's not random. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern. Scientists have proposed explanations. Rogue waves, massive waves that appear suddenly, can sink ships, can be 100 feet tall or more. Methane eruptions. We covered that. Electronic fog, a strange mist that supposedly affects instruments and perception. Waterspouts, tornadoes over water, can damage ships and planes, disrupt navigation. But none of them fully explain Flight 19. None of them account for all the evidence. Because Flight 19 wasn't a ship in a storm, it was 5 planes on a clear day. And they didn't just vanish. They reported compass failure. They reported disorientation. They reported that reality itself looked wrong. And then they were gone, without a trace. That's not rogue waves. That's not methane. That's not electronic fog. That's something else. Here's what bothers me most about Flight 19. What haunts me. The transmissions. We have recordings. We can hear Taylor's voice, getting more confused, more desperate, more frustrated. He's not panicking. He's not hysterical. He's trying to navigate, trying to figure out where they are, trying to get his men home. And he can't. Something fundamental is wrong. His instruments are lying to him. His eyes are lying to him. He knows they should be near Florida. He knows they should be able to see land, but they can't, because they're not where they think they are. They're somewhere else, somewhere that looks like the Atlantic, but isn't. And he knows it. You can hear it in his voice. The confusion, the frustration, the growing realization that something is very, very wrong. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should. That's not pilot error. That's not instrument failure. That's someone experiencing something impossible and trying to communicate it, trying to put words to an experience that shouldn't exist. So what really happened to Flight 19? We'll never know for sure. The official answer is unknown. Case closed. File it away. But here's what I think. I think Flight 19 encountered something in the Bermuda Triangle that we don't understand. A phenomenon, a force, a thin place where reality breaks down, where the barriers between dimensions weaken, where things can slip through. And I think they flew into one of those thin places. Their instruments went haywire because they were crossing into somewhere else. The ocean looked wrong because it was wrong. It was a different ocean, a different reality. And I think they might still be flying somewhere, in a parallel dimension, in a different time, in a place that's almost Earth, but not quite. Still looking for Fort Lauderdale, still trying to find their way home, never landing, never crashing, just flying forever in a reality that's not ours. Or maybe they landed somewhere that looks like Earth, feels like Earth, but isn't. And they're still there, waiting, wondering why no one came to rescue them, wondering what happened to their world. You think that's crazy? Fine. Then explain the evidence, explain the compasses, explain 5 simultaneous instrument failures across multiple backup systems. Explain the ocean doesn't look as it should. Explain why 27 men and 6 aircraft vanished without leaving a single piece of debris in 80 years of searching. Explain why the Navy classified parts of this case for decades. Explain why they still won't release all the audio recordings. What are they hiding? What don't they want us to hear? What did those men say in the hours before they vanished? What did they report seeing? The Bermuda Triangle isn't just a place where accidents happen. It's a place where reality breaks down, where the rules don't apply, where things that should be impossible become routine, where ships and planes don't just sink or crash, they disappear completely, without trace, as if they never existed. Flight 19 isn't the first. It won't be the last. The triangle is still there, still active, still taking things. And we're supposed to believe it's all just bad luck, all just coincidence, all just natural causes. I don't buy it. And after today, neither should you. Here's my challenge to you, and I actually want you to do this. Go look at a map of the Bermuda Triangle. Look at how many disappearances have happened there. Look at the patterns, the similarities, the impossible circumstances, the perfect weather, the experienced crews, the sudden silence, the lack of debris, over and over, same area, same symptoms, and then come back and tell me it's all just coincidence. Tell me Flight 19 just crashed and we haven't found the wreckage in 80 years of searching with modern technology and sonar and satellites. Tell me the ocean doesn't look as it should, is just a confused pilot making a mistake. Tell me I'm wrong. Explain it to me. Use the comments. Break down why you think this is natural, why you think this is normal, because I've studied this case for years and every natural explanation falls apart under scrutiny, every single one. Or tell me you agree. Tell me you think something else happened. Tell me what you think they flew into. Parallel dimension, time slip, magnetic vortex, alien abduction, dimensional rift. What's your theory? And don't give me the safe answer. Don't just say interesting video. Take a stance. Commit to an explanation. Team natural causes or team paranormal? Pick one. Defend it. Provide evidence. Counter my arguments or support them. Either way, engage, think, question. Because this case deserves more than unknown. It deserves answers. I'll be in the comments responding to the best theories. And if you can convince me I'm wrong about this, if you can provide a natural explanation that accounts for all the evidence, the compass failures, the visual distortions, the complete lack of debris, all of it, I'll pin your comment and admit it in the next video. I'll acknowledge I was wrong, but you have to account for everything. You can't cherry pick. You can't ignore inconvenient facts. Explain it all. Tomorrow, Day 3, the Mary Celeste, December 1872. A ship found in perfect condition, sails set, cargo intact, food still warm on the plates in the galley. But the entire crew gone? 10 people, including a captain, his wife, and their 2-year-old child. Vanished from a ship in the middle of the ocean. The official explanation? They panicked and abandoned ship for no reason. Yeah, sure. A careful religious captain put his infant daughter in a lifeboat and rowed away from food, water, and shelter into the open ocean because he panicked? About what? I have a different theory, one that connects to Flight 19, one that suggests these aren't isolated incidents, that there's a pattern, that something is hunting us, taking us, and has been for centuries. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. This is a 7-day series, 7 impossible disappearances, each one building on the last, each one adding evidence to a theory that's going to make you uncomfortable. See you tomorrow, and drop your Flight 19 theory below, right now. Team natural or team paranormal? What do you think happened? Where did they go? Are they still out there somewhere? I want specifics. I want theories. I want you to engage with the evidence. Comment, debate, challenge me. This is what this series is about. Finding truth or admitting we can't. See you tomorrow.